So today I want to visit a theme that is a very big deal in our world, and that is dealing with differences, dealing with people who have different worldviews than you, but also dealing with people who may have different levels of emotional sensitivity, or people who may see you differently than you see yourself. I've always said differences tend to push buttons, especially when the difference is between you and somebody who's really important to you, because human connection is like the core thing that helps us feel safe, connected to somebody versus alienated or separate. So differences are going to push buttons. So we're going to look today at some of the different types of differences that are in your life. I'm going to do a few different raise your hand type of exercises. And then I'll also ask for input from people about your own experiences. And I might work with some volunteers or a volunteer about a difference that is triggering, that's either current or past in your life. So it's great that some of you have your screen on, because it is going to be partly a show of hands and get an idea of who's had what different types of experiences around differences. So before I go into the theme, I just want to ask how many people heard about this session with me through Facebook? Show of hands. Anybody just heard about it through Facebook? I just put it on about 15 minutes ago on Facebook. Okay, thanks. And I assume the rest of you heard about it through my newsletter. Who's on my newsletter list? It's nice to see faces of who I'm writing to every month. Thanks for coming. So I want to do another kind of show of hands, and you can either raise the hand or use the hand raising function in your in your Zoom program, if you know how to use that. It's under reactions down at the bottom of your screen. So I'm going to name off a few different kinds of differences, just to help us get warmed up to the whole theme, because some kinds of differences make a bigger difference in your world, in your emotional sense of ease. And some differences are so big that you need to end a relationship because of them. So I'm going to be looking at the whole range of different differences. So I'm going to ask, how many of you have a close friend or family member where there are significant differences in worldview or political attitudes? Just let's see a show of hands there. How many have friends and family where that shows up? Okay, so this is great. It's just about everybody. How many people, now I've got a more psychological one here. How many people have a relationship or different relationships in your life where your level of emotional sensitivity is quite different from theirs? I want to say something about this one. Sometimes parents and children will have different levels of emotional sensitivity, and the parent will have a hard time, like let's say a less sensitive in their nervous system, I'll tell you what I mean by sensitive in a minute, but a less sensitive parent will have a highly sensitive child, and it will be very difficult for both. It's really difficult for both the parent and child, but it's difficult for that parent to attune to the child. Parent will get impatient with how often the child is fussy and that sort of thing. So even when I say that right now, I'm thinking of lots of friends and clients that I know where that's really been a painful issue their whole life. So I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I want to ask you, do you suspect that you and your parent might have had that sort of a difference? It's more common than we often think about. And then when they get to be adults, and I'm doing quite a few different mediations now between an adult child and their adult parent. And it's extremely hard for them to get on the same page and hear the reality of the other person, because two people will experience the same event so differently. So this is something that sometimes we blame we blame the less sensitive person, but I just want to say that there's been quite a bit of psychological research on babies and how quickly and intensely a baby reacts to a loud sound, or this sounds a little unethical in a way when I think of psychological research that does this, but baby reacting to a loud sound or the possibility of being dropped. Now, I used to teach psychology at the college level back in the 60s and 70s. And when I read that research, I thought, man, this is an ethical issue. But anyway, there really is quite a bit of data that says babies come into the world with different levels of sensitivity. And of course, that can be due to a whole bunch of factors. And just one other little tidbit here. Most of the research back in the 60s said that boy babies are more sensitive to those things, the loud noise and the possibility of being dropped. Boy babies are more sensitive than girl babies. So just a little factoid. What do you make of that? So I'm going to ask a few more of these raise your hand questions. How many people have a relationship in your life or have had a difficult relationship where the way somebody sees you is different than the way you see yourself? How many people have that? I'd like to see a show of hands. And that can be just sort of an in the moment kind of difference and not necessarily across the board, like in any given moment or during a period of your life. Somebody sees you, for example, as too sensitive, and you see yourself as not too anything. This is I'm as sensitive as I am, or too needy. Well, I had to say to a client yesterday, she used the word dependent. I think I'm too dependent, and yeah, she may need to work on some stuff there in relationship to her husband. However, I said to her, you're as dependent as you are. Oh, that's kind of my philosophy. How many people have one or more situations where a difference in personality style would cause misunderstandings? And let me say what I mean by a personality style. Like some people are much more achievement oriented. This could also be maybe motivational style, much more task oriented, get the job done. If you want to spend too much time talking about your feelings and, I've got a project at work, I'm going to put the project as a higher priority than talking about feelings. So you have more of a task oriented or more of a relationship oriented personality style. And at work, there's a lot of seminars that we give people in the workplace where a very task-oriented boss will be supervising employees who need more emotional appreciation, that sort of thing, and they just don't understand it. How many people have been in some kind of relationship where there was that discrepancy between a task, more of a task focus, and a relational focus? Now, as you go through these, some of these differences are more painful. You felt something, or you had, specific memories come, some of these differences are probably not as painful. A couple other big differences in the personality style area that tend to cause conflict and pain are the person in a relationship who I used to call it the face-to-face player, the person who likes a lot of intimate sharing. It's a little bit like the task and relationship polarity, actually. But this is more in an intimate relationship. You really need face-to-face personal feedback. I thought about you today. Did you think about me? They like pillow talk, that sort of thing. Whereas the other style is the side-by-side person. We used to also call it the parallel player, the person who's very happy to have this relationship. I really need you in my life. And it's so wonderful when we're out in the garden doing our gardening together, or when we're cleaning out the garage together. It just gives me joy. Some of us go, well, that doesn't do me much good. It doesn't meet my needs. So how many people have been part of that difference in an intimate relationship? Show of hands. I definitely have. That's often very painful, because in more intimate relationships, we take our differences personally. And what that means is, if you prefer to do gardening together instead of pillow talk, I take that as I'm not important to you. I'm not valued. And the other person who if you take that gardening with me, isn't important, I take that as I'm not enough for you. I can't satisfy you. There's something wrong with me. So these are the kind of core fears that are often underneath these differences. And the core fears, if you've read, my latest 2 books, at least, where I mentioned how to work with trigger reactions, we understand that underneath these reactive behaviors, like criticizing the other person for how they behaved, or shutting down, walking on eggshells, those are all reactive behaviors showing that you've been triggered. Underneath any of those reactive behaviors are tender fears, tender core fears, like the fear that I'm not good enough, or the fear that I'm not valued. And we haven't, as a society, learned to drop into that level of self-awareness yet, most people, but I'm trying to promote more emotional intelligence and emotional vulnerability, so that we can talk to each other about what we really need. It's not just that I need you to come out to the garden with me. What I really need is I need to feel that I'm enough for you. And sometimes there are gaps in levels of satisfaction in relationships. So these are tender areas. And I think I have one more here. Yeah, one more is, how many of you have ever ended a relationship due to irreconcilable differences, or something, what I would call the relationships too upsetting to your nervous system? One of the other of those. So I have. And I have a chapter in my new book, From Triggered to Tranquil, that tries to make it like not so horrible if you end a relationship because it's just too re-traumatizing for your nervous system. Some relationships need to end for that reason. Even you've worked with Susan Campbell's tools, you worked your triggers, but you just cannot get to the point where you can feel safe enough of the time. I mean, I think all of us will feel unsafe some of the time in an intimate relationship, and we need to learn how to help ourselves feel safe. But some relationships are just too re-traumatizing. And so it's tough when you have to break up a marriage, for example, but there is something that's just so ingrained in humans. Our nervous system tells us what's okay and not okay for us. And if something's not okay, I think we do need to work to expand our comfort zone and not just live in this narrow little, oh, you know, if everybody who looks at me cross-eyed, I think they're gossiping about me, and I think they, you know, they hate me. You know, I mean, if we have really strong biases in terms of fear stories like that, we need to work those through. But sometimes it's just a limit on how much psychological work can change your nervous system. I still want to say we need to try, because we can heal our childhood wounds in our adult relationships. There is a formula for that. It's in my latest 2 books, 5-Minute Relationship Repair, and the latest one, From Tricky to Tranquil. There really is a path to healing, to self-healing, to helping each other heal, but sometimes it's just too much. So with that little warm up, I want to see if you can think of a relationship where there was a difference that you'd like to take another look at how this affected you. Oh, maybe you were triggered by it, or maybe it's more of an opinion difference, and you'd like to maybe get my advice or somebody else's advice on how to handle this. So I'm gonna open it up now and see if anybody just wants to chat with me for a minute. We'll just dialogue and see where it goes. Danielle, are you raising your hand for that?
I am.
Wonderful.
I would like to do that.
Tell me what your situation is.
So this is a situation with my dad. And what I realized at some point in my healing journey, maybe 20 years ago, was that my dad would agree with me in order to maintain connection. And then I realized later that I had that same kind of thing going with either friends or, that's why for me, having like being on the political, like on the opposite side with some of my family members, and I go to talk about it, I get angry so quickly. And it's like, it's like I can't tolerate that we have that big disagreement. And I just get angry and I judge, and it's like, you're wrong. And, you got to come to my side. And then eventually I realized, oh, well, I'm doing the same thing. If I don't have agreement in a relationship, then that means that I'm not safe. And so that layer of having had agreement and connection wired together, it was such a powerful insight, but I'm still struggling with that, because like in my current relationship, we were not on political opposites, thank goodness, but in the area of health, we do have differences. I'm more, he's more regular medicine, and I'm more, wanting alternatives. And but we've been able to manage that one and still be okay. But there are definitely differences, and then that's painful. It's really painful to feel that. It's like our connection is based on something. I don't know quite how to describe that, but it feels like there's something amiss there.
Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
through a couple of things here. I just want to discuss both the anger thing and then your current partner with the differences about health decisions and that health sort of behaviors. I think I'm going to speak to something you said, Danielle, in a way that I think might help some other people too.
Please, please,
You
absolutely.
mentioned, and you mentioned something very important, how many of us try to force agreement in order to keep the connection. So let's say some of us have had patterns of go along to get along. You know what that means? Like
Absolutely.
agree, because it just would be too unsafe to experience the real conflict there, the real difference. Anger. So anger can come up once you kind of either you do realize you've got this tendency to mush in with other people and not have clear boundaries around, who am I? Anger is a way of asserting boundaries sometimes. And so it can be kind of a healthy developmental stage as you're differentiating. And it kind of, even though sometimes the anger is not you at your best, most rational self, maybe you're not all there with your anger. Your anger is serving an important purpose to teach you that differentiating from somebody won't kill you. Did it do that for you, Danielle?
It didn't kill me, yes.
Yeah.
I'm still here. There's
Well,
evidence.
Kind of, maybe that was too exaggerated a metaphor here. It won't kill you. But it's kind of something to go, okay, this is the thing I'm most scared of, deathly afraid of, that type of thing. And I did it and I survived. And also we can talk later if we want to about if you have an angry outburst and that sort of thing, you can treat this as a trigger reaction. Why don't I just deal with it right now? You can treat this as, oh, I was triggered, because even though if you're angry at somebody for their opinion, it's probably a trigger reaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there are times that, you angry at somebody for crashing your car, or I remember I got angry at somebody one time for, I loaned him my car and he ran the car out of oil, and, it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. So, you get angry at people for ordinary violations of your
common sense.
Common sense. Good.
Yeah.
Good way to say it. Thank you. But then sometimes there's too late. I was dealing with a couple yesterday where, yes, she's angry at something that he did that was careless, mm-hmm. and it also triggers you. So, I kind of counsel people, work with the trigger, and then you get into a, he said, she said, oh, I didn't really mean to do that. Yeah, but you're not capable, blah, blah, blah. You get into that kind of argument and you're in trigger land.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing you can do a repair on, like, I'm sorry I called you a name. It was one of my old fears of not being well taken care of coming up. Mm-hmm. And so you name it as a trigger and you apologize for the reactive behavior. And then once the trigger this is something that's hard for people to get when they start learning about working with triggers and repairing. Once you've repaired the acting out of your fear onto the other, where you actually did something hurtful or unconscious, once you've repaired that and apologized, then you can get back to the thing you were actually angry about. Yeah, but now, do we have an agreement that, oh, you will return the thing you borrowed by X amount of time, or some, you make clearer agreements for the future. So that your boundaries and yourself will be respected. So that's a little aside on how to deal with, I'm going to say, like normal anger, and then anger that's tied in with some reactivity that needs to be cleaned up.
Because this kind of anger or upset at the disagreement like I can even stop and breathe through it and calm myself down, but there's something it's not shifting, it's not getting better. There's something deeper that I need to deal with and address so that I don't feel so unsafe. And then that reaction kicks in and takes over. And then I don't even realize that I'm not feeling safe because the anger serves as the protection,
That's right.
the
That's right.
defense mechanism against it. And my feeling is that I can't, not at this moment, I can't work with myself on that one.
Let's go there now.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted to go next. And
Okay. Mhm.
are we talking about now the more worldview political thing? Or are we talking about the health practices thing with your current partner?
Well,
Which trigger, I mean, both of those differences can be triggering, but which
yeah.
one are you?
Well, the health one, because it's the current one, I mean, the other one still impacts me, with my siblings. I mean, so they're both very active still, for me, but the health one with my husband is the one that bothers me because because I don't like behaving that way and getting angry at him. And, it really hurts my heart to be reactive. And he's so kind and so gentle and so forgiving. And
so let's work on that. And I want you to know that my current partner and I have some differences also around our health practices in terms of I'm more alternative and he's more traditional medicine, that sort of thing.
Yeah, my husband's vaccinated, I'm not, or
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
So I'm going to work with Danielle, but I want to get a show of hands for those who have your cameras on, or use the hand function if you're willing. For those who don't, how many people, either now or recently, at least, within recent memory, have experienced this kind of a difference between yourself and a loved one, a difference around health practices? I just want to see how many people in the room are kind of interested in that one. Okay, quite a few people have got that going on. So let's go forward with Danielle. And Danielle, here you are now. You just moved on my screen, but I found you again.
We can keep bouncing. You kept bouncing around, so I'm going to shift the view too,
Yeah,
so that you're in the speaker. Okay, there we go.
So and when a therapist has the same issue that the client has, there's always this danger that the therapist will project their issue onto the client. So I will do my best to.
I know that one. So
not myself.
I'm talking to my clients oftentimes, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm talking to myself too. I need to hear this just as well.
Yeah, and I like dealing with this issue, partly because it is alive for
exactly.
me also, and
we can help each other.
Good.
But then it also means that we know that ability to hold space and to connect with, it's like, okay, I'm really with you on this one.
Yeah. So I am with you. Say it. Say for us, if you can remember something, a moment or a conversation, a moment either where you had a thought that triggered yourself, or there was an incident or a conversation with your husband. So tell us about a triggering incident.
So if I if I can use the vaccine as an example, and and for me, it's like, it's not so much the vaccine itself, but it's the whole process that the government uses for, I believe that there's corruption on the inside and we're not getting the truth. And the people that have opposing views are being silenced and labeled as quacks. And, so that there's this concerted effort to not allow this healthy discussion to take place and to resolve itself within, like I said, okay, well, anti-science. No, science is that you listen to both sides. And even in bringing up that argument, um, he jumps immediately to the, well, people can use science, to prove anything they want. It's um, like a lot of the supplements out there make claims that are, outrageous. And who do you believe? How do you know what you're getting? And, the regulation around this stuff. So there's a lot of areas with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But with both of us, it's like we both default to, like a position as opposed to really listening to each other. And I don't know how to slow that down.
Okay.
Because
So
it gets so inflamed so quickly.
well,
And also
he
the other,
probably gets triggered, so he probably gets triggered too, right?
yeah.
So part of why Danielle is getting triggered is because her partner's triggered.
Yeah, if he just would agree with me, everything would be fine, right? Or if he didn't challenge me, then everything would be fine.
But let's go a little
It's
further.
all over there on him.
Yeah. So we have in many discussions, particularly things that have to do with politics or differences in worldviews, we have opinions. I mean, you could say your opinions are fact, but we have opinions, facts, whatever you want to call it, and we have feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, so you hear, let's create the scenario where maybe you've said something about the science on both sides should be respected, and then what might he do? Would he go into, well, look, there's so much evidence that most vitamins do not really do what they claim that they're going to do, stuff like that. What would be a specific that would trigger you when you try to be heard? Is it an opinion or is it a way he bees with you?
It's the way that he bees, that he'll go to something that he's already said. And so I know that opinion already. And I said, well, I know that, so I will stop him rather than hear him out, because just hearing that contradicting opinion I'm already triggered in that moment.
So see if we can find, now you already know that is one of your reactions. And then there's another, because we're looking at Danielle's internal mind chatter now. And another one is he's repeating himself is another, is that like
Yeah,
that?
I already know that. I've already countered that one.
Yeah. And how about then, do you have any other stories about him? See, often when we're triggered, we start with, like, this is my beloved and I have some fears come up because I want to be able to depend on this person. Remember that context. Any other mind chatter that comes up, like, it sounds like you're judging him here, but we're going to get to the bottom of this today. Any other judgments about him?
He's not listening. He doesn't want to hear what I have to say, because even when he does listen, it's like it doesn't change anything.
Okay, let's pause right there. He doesn't want to hear what I have to say. So now it's getting a little more personal toward Danielle. We're using it as a demonstration here, because anytime we have a judgmental thought towards somebody else, it's some version of a trigger. And sometimes we have to kind of mine the judgment a little bit more. And it begins to get a little personal, like he doesn't want to hear me or my reality. Any feelings coming up as
I had not gone to that place yet, that it's about that my voice, that there's room for me
for my voice.
Yeah. And because, and what I'm sensing as well is that because that's an early pain,
Yep.
is that when I do share what I'm sharing, is I don't do it from my heart. I do it from a declarative place. Like I'm declarative. This is what the truth is. It's like, well, da 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 da. And and that's how my dad was. He was very declarative in everything.
Mhm.
And so and of course, as a child, I believed him. I thought he was wonderful, and wow, am I lucky that my dad knows so much. And, I mean, I didn't know that I was being erased.
Okay, so you say there's early pain there. I was being erased. Allow yourself to feel for that young child now with that, very sure of himself dad. And the little child doesn't even quite like
Matter.
make sense. You don't make sense of what's going on, but something's happening to the little child. Kind of, let's get empathic with her. And what feelings or thoughts or body sensations are there as we're going to this place?
This is like I'm on that edge of being able to feel,
Mhm.
and it, the sense that I don't understand. Um, like it's one thing when it's not about me and he's talking and I go, wow, isn't he smart? And so it's like I have this, trust in him and his knowledge.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the way that I'm being silenced, um, it's way more subtle.
Yeah.
It's way
Yeah.
more subtle.
Yeah.
And so this sense of not being seen and that I don't matter. Um, I yes, I'm feeling how subtle it is on his part.
Yeah.
That when he goes back to something that he's already said, there's a message in there,
Mm-hmm.
that there's something wrong with me because he has to repeat himself. I'm not sure, but that it comes back to me
Mm-hmm.
not being okay.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that I don't ever get to.
Yeah. This is very good that you're getting to it. And so we call that feeling, that complex of feelings of, well, my voice isn't being heard, my voice doesn't matter, I'm not valued, or at least in terms of my thoughts and feelings. That's your that's kind of a complex of tenderness that I want you to see that as like a beautiful little part of yourself that needs our compassion and love right now. This is just your tender place.
Mhm.
We can sometimes connect it to early childhood memories. We are doing that a bit here. And we can just feel a little bit more with that part. Like, yeah, that would make sense that you would be sensitive to this kind of verbalization from your husband.
It's like feeling erased.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, feeling erased. Notice how that is in your body as you say that.
Yeah, I kind of tense up actually.
Yeah.
It's my shoulders are tightening and my arms are tightening, like in a
Yeah.
more like in this protective stance.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're just getting in touch with that. That's a core place of tenderness for Danielle. It was when you were little, but it was kind of unconscious then. But now in your adult relationship, you're getting to work this out. You're getting to touch back in to childhood pain that you weren't really aware of at the time, but it was there. There was some not necessarily painful pain that you felt, but there was a contraction in this little girl's being.
Yeah. it's like a series of contractions that happen over and over and over. So it's this slow
Mhm.
diminishing,
Yeah.
and then somehow at some point it's like having to give up my belief or what me, in order to maintain that connection for survival.
Mhm.
And and
Mm.
that's the place where it's really challenging to feel that piece of the being erased. And I mean, my guess is that there's terror under there. and yeah, and then just in saying that,
Mhm.
it's like I'm right on the edge.
Yeah, let yourself breathe more fully to
Mm, mm,
open up
mm, mm, mm,
space
mm,
for
mm,
more
mm. And
intense.
nothing in me wants to breathe right now. It's like
Yeah, you want to
I
hold your
want to
breath.
not breathe. Yeah.
You want to get smaller and
Okay. I just took a breath because I had to.
the idea behind this practice is breathing helps you make space for more intense feelings,
Good. Yeah, yes.
supports more feeling.
Doesn't feel like that, but
I know.
yeah.
And who wants to feel more intense feelings anyway at a time like
Well,
this?
actually, I do because I'm so good at numbing, and so
Okay,
yeah, I'll
good.
yeah.
You have a conscious value on holding more of all of yourself. So that's what we're doing with our breath work. See if I can bring in, and those of us who are witnessing this, wherever we're going in our own inner exploration, because some of us may have gone to our own childhood memories or feelings of contraction. See if we can all breathe a little more to open up space, or just to hold space for Danielle. Because I think we all need to expand our capacity to experience difficult feelings. This helps.
Both our own and someone
And
else's.
someone else's. Breathing, when you start to feel that wanting to run out of the room or get angry, pausing to just open up the breath, make space for things to come in that wouldn't ordinarily be able to come in because you wouldn't be able to tolerate it.
Yes, I'm working on integrating this idea that breathing is part of the solution and not the problem, right? It's like,
Yeah. And
because the instinct is to not breathe and to tighten.
yeah. And you know, in therapy, we want to work very slowly and gently with these contractions, because the contraction itself has a lot of information in it.
Mhm.
The wish to not breathe, to not feel. So you can like, just for demonstration for the others here, you can let a little of the contraction back in, just to
Oh yeah, it didn't go away.
go away.
It's like breathing
Mhm.
and holding the contraction at the same time. So it's like
Yeah.
I feel like I can do both.
Mhm.
I'm still more on the not breathing side, and then
Yeah.
suddenly my body says breathe.
Let's try something, a little technique from Gestalt therapy. Give that contracted part of yourself a voice. Would you
Mm,
like to try that? Like, oh, whatever that part would say.
mm. It would be like,
Like, no.
no, 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 no.
Hmm. So we want to honor that first before we go too far into just opening up space to feel. We want to honor that no, no, no.
Yeah, the goal and the protection.
Yeah.
It's to protect. It's to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I see you touching your chest area there, and I always like to do that too.
Mhm.
So now I'm bringing tenderness to the no, no, no part. And we just follow this in the time that it takes to integrate some of these new feelings. And Danielle, what's happening now for you in your body and your mind?
I have an awareness of time, and yeah, and it's like I'm still like right on that edge of,
Yeah.
you know, dropping in deep or just kind of hanging out right here. And so I'm just like seeing where it wants to go. And
we'll take a little more time with you and me. And then at some point I may just allow you to be there where you are with yourself. We're not trying to go anywhere else with this, but I want to just give it another minute or so here and see if anything else occurs that wants our attention.
you know what I actually what's running through is there's always shoulds in there,
Mhm.
you know, and then my own self judgments around, and then I think a lot of shame around um, that this is still a struggle.
Mm.
You know, I think
Shame that this is still a struggle.
yeah, that you know, after so many years of doing this, you know, such difficult work of connecting,
Mhm.
and just how paralyzing shame is.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to honor that.
Yeah.
I'll just say something now. I train coaches in how to help other people with their trigger reactions. And somewhere during the class, I always ask for a show of hands. How many people, even though you teach this stuff, still have shame about the fact that you yourself get triggered and sometimes lose it? Everybody raises their hand. You know, we're still in a very beginning of the learning curve, I think, as a culture.
As a culture, yes,
You
and
know,
as a practice.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of exercises and tools for how to accept that we all get triggered in the new book. And I felt that was missing from the other book that I wrote because so many people really have a hard time accepting that geez,
Yeah.
I'm still dealing with this after all these years.
You know, the piece for me that has been so helpful in with reducing the shame is the acknowledgement of the developmental trauma, the very early pre-verbal trauma. And that gets missed oftentimes because the ability to articulate it is missing in people. And
Right.
so I have a voice for that for myself. And so I feel so grateful that I can articulate it at that really young level.
Yeah.
Because of good therapy, right? Because of having had.
Yeah, because it's very hard. It's very hard to work with things that happened before you learned how to speak. And that's all written down in the body.
Yeah.
And you know, as we're working here together, we're going there, but it might take a little longer.
I always miss the
Oh,
shame piece, right? The shame piece sometimes is so hard to get to and say, oh, that's such a big part of the tightening and the constricting is I don't want to feel that shame and humiliation and you know, and then the terror that's also connected with that. So that's a lot. That's
right. That's a double.
it's like a like
double.
yarn that's all tangled together, you know, and how do you undo that strand by strand? It's like now, you know, like my teeth start chattering. I mean, you know, just as I acknowledge the complexity of what's going on internally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times in doing inner child work or trauma work, you'll find forces that are going against one another like this, that'll come up inside. You'll be shaking, or a part of you will, like in this, want to breathe, and the other part will just want to completely contract. And you might find, this kind of energy, and don't worry.
Oh, I've identified,
wanna say
I don't know
that-
how many, it feels like hundreds and hundreds of binds, oh, this and this, oh, this and this,
Yeah, I feel confident that you're aware of that. So I always insert a little teaching for the others.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and then thank you for bringing in the shame piece, which clearly does need to be addressed as we kind of peel away the layers of pain here to get to what some people might call the original pain, but there's no one incident in a person's life. Generally, it's it's core needs, like the need to feel valued and loved, not being met in a variety of different ways in early life, for example, or not being co-regulated.
Right.
Co-regulation is the parent, when the child is upset, the parent holds the child tenderly and with a kind of stillness and presence that a lot of parents can't do for very long, because the child doesn't calm down right away sometimes. And so it starts to get agitated. And what co-regulation is supposed to teach us is I can get upset and then I can calm the system.
Haya needs to mute herself, I believe.
Thank you.
Coming in.
Aya, will you mute yourself? Or maybe I can. Oh, she just did mute herself. Okay. Now there's still,
Okay, good. Yeah.
let me see if there's anybody else.
Lynn is unmuted also.
Okay, let's just all mute ourselves for now, or I can do Lynn's. Whoops. I guess I have to. Oh, I think she did it. Okay, we're good. So I kind of forgot where I was there, but what I want to begin to bring this back to
Oh yeah, the being soothed through a parent
right. I was talking
who
about
can't
co-regulation.
hold it because probably because they didn't get it themselves.
They didn't get it themselves. So many of us need to teach ourselves by working consciously with self-regulation, which is this. It's bringing yourself slow, conscious breaths to calm your own nervous system, even if you didn't learn that from your early caregiver. Most of us did not learn that from our early caregiver.
Can I ask something about that? That's
Yeah.
It's like when my husband, he gets upset with me and he brings it to me, and if he has any hint of like if he's triggered when he brings it to me, it's like I am so guarded and defended, and no matter how hard I try to open my heart to his pain, I can't do it. And then but I hang in there and I listen, and we hang in there with it. And then at some point, either through what I'm sharing or maybe what I'm feeling in my own pain, his heart softens. And as soon as his heart softens, then I open up. And my sense is that that there's some place in here that is still so young that I still need that presence of another human being in order to open myself up to feeling. And I'm like, is that just like, okay, it has to be my way. That's what he'll say sometimes, everything has to be your way. And so I'm like, I have guilt or shame, that this is how I am. And why can't I just find my own way, without having to have some holding space somehow, that I haven't been able to create my own holding space. And I resist a lot of self-care stuff because because going into myself is like, it's like that's my going away, dissociated place. And so how do I come in? How do I switch that from being a place where I dissociate as opposed to a place where I connect? And so that's like a real challenge that
I'd like to help you get more co-regulation actually from your husband. I'd like to start there because that seems like it is a genuine need. However, you're probably not going to get it if you're in the middle of clashing. And so you may have to, go back to your husband after one of these. And here's
well, we do the repair work. We
You do
always do the
repair,
repair
yeah.
work. So
Once you
we're really
repair,
good at that.
once you repair and
Yeah.
and ask for your needs to be met in that moment, he's not threatened by you making him wrong. When he feels safe, he's going to be able to co-regulate you. And I kind of want to say there's nothing wrong with that, Danielle. Okay, if that'll help you, and if you're lucky enough to have somebody who kind of wants to do that when he's safe.
When
he's saying it's always about you. Hey, I want to say to everybody,
yeah,
all partners say that to each other.
under the
But let's get below.
But I do tend to be very
that.
self-absorbed, as and I don't have that. He's more the connecting type, and is, and I have to think about, okay, I need to go connect. I need to go find my husband and connect, because I'm okay being alone and a loner. And it's like, I don't miss people until they start leaving. Some people need that, they need the connection. So a friend and I had that opposite need. And once we understood that through the Enneagram, it made our relationship so much easier, because, she was expecting me to be like her emotionally, and we're the opposite. So understanding that can be really helpful as well. Then it helps me to reach out more, because I know that's his need. He needs that.
You may need it more than you think. That may be.
Well, that's the other side of it too.
That may be so unconscious in you still, but I'm going to say if you're in the situation you're in right now, I have an intuition, that's all I can call it, that you probably need co-regulation and reassurance and that sort of thing more than you're conscious of right now. So
and I may be discounting what I am getting and not really acknowledging it enough. Taking it for granted, in other words. We just had our 50-year anniversary, so It's been a long time.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing. Well, I'm going to begin to wrap up with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all that you've shared today. We really touched on a lot.
Thank you. I've gotten a couple golden nuggets here, the breathing piece especially, that I'm going to carry with me. Thank you so much.
Well, it's already 11, so
wow.
Time went fast, but I think we used it well. Is there anybody? I'll stay on. I don't have anything right away. Is there anybody who has any comment or question to help us kind of close this out today? I'm not going to open up something else, but I might answer a short question if you have something. Any comments or questions at all? Frances Joy, hi.
Hello. I'm just soaking this up. It's so feeds my soul to hear people go below the, and I noticed part of me was curious what's below. I mean, I'm always pushing for how far can
What's
you
the
go?
deepest? Yeah, what's the deepest level?
And mine is rage. And and I'm exploring in my thinking at least the connection of rage and grief and shame.
Hmm.
I'm really
That sounds pretty damn deep there, Joy.
well.
Boy, that is,
At my depths, I
Mm.
feel like a monster. So
Mhm.
I'm working, with the pre-birth trauma.
Yeah.
I actually started to write you. Then I realized this was happening because I was on a different track earlier this morning. So thank you, everyone. And
You.
Danielle, thank you. I could identify with the erased. And I thought, how totally relevant to our current situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all this current stuff, I'm going to trust this current world situation and the polarization and the various forms of polarization.
Erasure.
I want to say, yeah, and the erasure and the canceling and all the different levels of upset that we're experiencing here. We're we're needing to up level our capacity to handle more complexity, more intensity, more differentness, faster change. This is a big job for humanity. So I just want to thank all of you who are on this kind of a call, that we are consciously attempting to evolve ourselves and helping each other along the way. Because being in groups like this, I mean, Danielle, that was so helpful, I think, to a lot of us, just to even connect with the shame about triggers, for example, or to see how an ordinary discussion about, let's say, vitamins or something can go so deep. All right, so thanks to everyone for being here. And I do this once a month on Zoom. Bye for now.